Welcome to this daily devotion from Everyday Church. I'm Andy. Wherever you are in the world watching this, welcome. It's good to be with you today. You join us in the middle of a series in John's Gospel, and today we're looking at John 11. And today I'm going to focus our attention on Jesus' interaction with two sisters. Jesus is returning to Bethany to see Lazarus, who he has been told is sick. On his approach to Bethany, he is met by Martha and Mary. By this stage, Lazarus has died, and they approach Jesus one at a time. And you can read this story of Jesus comforting Martha and Mary in verses 17 to 37 of John 11. Now remember, these two sisters are grieving the same person at the same time. They both even say the same thing to Jesus as they approach him. Martha says it in verse 21. Mary says in verse 32, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." This is a statement of grief and hurt and faith. Can you feel their emotion through it? Do you recognize it? I wonder if you've ever prayed a prayer like this. Lord, if only. Notice how Jesus comforts Martha and Mary in two different ways. And if you're currently in a space where you too are praying prayers like, Lord, if only, then I want you to see how God still comforts his people in these ways. So let's quickly look at the two conversations that Jesus has with Martha and with Mary. He meets Martha first. Have a look again in verses 21 to 27. And to Martha, he gives a theological answer. He both affirms and informs her theology. So he affirms her belief in the resurrection that awaits creation at the last day. This was a common and correct belief in Jesus' day. And he says in verse 25, I am the resurrection and the life. There is so much in this statement. It tells us that healing, redemption, flourishing, and life are breaking into our dying world now. That there is a great rescue mission of God that even death cannot withstand. It is in Jesus that death is defeated. It is in him that new life will then spring forth. Jesus raises the dead and bestows eternal life on those who believe. And what a comforting thought for Martha. And for us, that God's purpose is to restore. Now, after this conversation, Martha goes to Mary and encourages her too to come and see Jesus. And they have a profound encounter. And while with Martha, Jesus had a conversation, with Mary, Jesus simply wept. John 11:35, Jesus wept, is the shortest verse in the Bible, and it's full of significance. In this action, we see the astonishing compassion and emotion of Jesus, that he's clearly moved and he shares in Mary's grief. Far from God being removed from our pain, maybe sort of distantly aware of the suffering of his creation, here we see that God empathizes with us. He knows our grief and pain and shares it with us. Now, if you've been through grief, then you will understand the importance of Jesus' action here. My dad died 2 years ago, and the comfort that I've most appreciated is from those who have come and inhabited my pain with me, who cry alongside me. This is how God feels about our grief too. He weeps alongside us. Now, what an amazing God we worship. Now, were you one of those people who identified with me about our if only prayers to God? Like Mary and Martha, who approached Jesus to say, if only you had been here. Do you, like me, recognize this cry of unanswered prayer in the middle of difficult circumstances? Well, then take heart, because these interactions with Jesus are not the end of the story. If you haven't ever read it, then read on, and particularly to verse 44. Jesus raises Lazarus from the grave. And as we read that story, as we take note of these interactions that Jesus had, let these amazing truths sink into your heart today. That Jesus gifts resurrection and life to those who believe. That God is with you in your pain, and resurrection is on the way. May God comfort you with these truths today.